7 real stories. 7 moments where the wrong decision or 1 second of hesitation could have changed everything. Pay attention to how each one ends, because not all close calls feel like close calls when they are happening. Story 1. Someone tried to come into my apartment at 1 a.m. and acted like they had the wrong place. This happened in January this year in Warsaw, and it still makes me uneasy. I was renting a small studio in Wola. Old building, thin walls, nothing unusual. I got home late that night, around 12:30 in the morning, after work. Everything felt normal. I locked the door, I always double-check, made some food, and sat on my bed scrolling my phone. Around 1:10 in the morning, I heard my door handle move. Not a knock, the handle. At first I thought I imagined it, but then it happened again. A slow, careful push, like someone was trying to open it quietly. I just froze. Then someone knocked. 2 quick knocks. I did not answer. After a few seconds, a man's voice said something like, "Hello? Sorry, wrong apartment." But here's the thing. He sounded way too calm. Not confused, not embarrassed, just flat. I still did not respond. Then I heard him try the handle one more time, harder this time. That's when I said loudly, "Yeah, wrong apartment." There was a pause. Then he just said, "Okay," and walked away. No apology, no explanation. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, I checked with my neighbor across the hall. She said no one had knocked on her door. Also, important detail, my apartment is at the end of the hallway. There is no reason to accidentally end up at my door unless you are going specifically there. But I started double locking and pushing a chair under the handle at night. Maybe it was nothing, but the way he tried the handle before knocking did not feel like a mistake. That one is hard to shake, because nothing happened. And that is exactly what makes it terrifying. The next story is different. It happened at work, in broad daylight, and it still cost someone everything. Story 2. I got my coworker fired. I started working at my retail job a little over a year ago. The age range of my coworkers ranges from me, the youngest, 25 female, 24 at the time of this story, to about 80, which is important here. One of my older coworkers, probably 65 years old and male, and I would talk here and there when we worked together, which was not that often. He was very sweet, even bringing in fresh cookies for my coworker and me, because we had not been working when he brought them in the weekend before. He was super welcoming and extremely nice, and I truly never got any bad or creepy vibe from him. A few months into me working there, he had to get surgery and take some time off. During his time off, he decided to come in to walk around the store and catch up with some coworkers. While I was taking my lunch in the break room, he walked in and grabbed a cup of water, and we started to small talk. I asked him about his surgery, he asked me about my lunch, and then the vibe suddenly shifted as the conversation started to die down. I genuinely felt like the air was different in the room. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a business card that he had written his number on and handed it to me. He said that if I ever wanted to grab a coffee sometime, I should reach out. I laughed awkwardly, starting to feel uncomfortable that a grown married man had just asked me to grab a coffee. But because I had never felt a strange vibe from him before, I wanted to chalk it up to him just being a sweet old man who enjoyed chatting with me. It just felt so off though. After I told him I would think about it and he left the room, I felt that his intentions were not what I hoped they could be. I immediately started texting my friend about the situation and felt the urge to cry. Then he walked back into the room and asked me if I could keep the interaction between just the two of us. He said it was because our other coworkers might get jealous that we had not invited them. That was what fully solidified my feeling that something was wrong. Because I had just started working there, I didn't want to bring it up to my boss, and confided in 2 coworkers instead, both women closer to my age. They validated how I felt, and told me to speak to my boss about it. One of my coworkers asked if it was okay if she could talk to her instead, and I said yes. About 2 weeks later, I was walking around the sales floor when someone told me that my coworker had come in again to walk around the store. I told my managers I was going to sit in the office while he was there, and that is when my boss decided to go have a chat with him. I sat in the office for about 10 minutes until I heard my boss saying, "I have told you to leave 5 times, please go," very sternly. and I could hear him begging to come into the office to talk to me. My boss validated my feelings and told me that no 65-year-old married man whose kids are probably older than me should be asking his 24-year-old coworker to grab a coffee. But even though I know I should not feel this way, ever since then I have felt a bit guilty that he got fired because of me, especially because he had been working there for years and no one else had ever had a strange interaction like that one. He came in recently, after not being in the store since last year, and my heart sank. If it felt weird, it was weird. I have to keep reminding myself of that. Workplace stories hit different because there is nowhere to run. The next one happened somewhere even more unexpected, on a flooded street, after a typhoon. And the woman in this story is one of the bravest people I have ever heard of. Story 3. My mom almost walked into a real-life horror movie after a typhoon. While most moms are yelling at kids to clean their rooms, mine is out there in 98-degree heat, knocking on strangers' doors to get clients for my dad's upholstery business. There is no office, no salary, just grit and a backpack full of flyers, because she understands that if she doesn't bring in money, we don't get to eat. This happened a few years back, right after a typhoon that turned our neighborhood into a swamp. Streets were still flooded, power was out, and everyone was just trying to survive. Mom saw a big white house with a massive sofa sitting outside, covered in mud, but still valuable. To her, that sofa meant bills paid. It meant surviving the aftermath. She called out at the gate. A bulky man appeared. He towered over her because she is only 4 feet 11 inches tall. She started her pitch, while the man just listened, wordlessly. Then he told her to just come inside to discuss the price. Most people talk at the gate, but Mom followed him anyway, because bills don't care if you're scared. They got to the front door. He did not open it wide, just enough for her to squeeze through, and that's when she felt something was off. Through the gap of the door hinge, she saw a second man, crouched behind the door like a predator. There were fresh bloody gashes all over his arms and chest, still glistening. There was a table behind him with foil, needles, and smoke around it. The man at the door was looking at her, waiting for her to step inside so he could shut the door behind her. In that split second, she understood everything. But she didn't panic. She smiled instead, and acted as if my dad was calling her on the phone. She told the man that her husband was waiting for her outside, so she would just come back later. It was a complete lie. She was alone. She walked away as if nothing had happened. But the moment she hit the street where the man could no longer see her, she sprinted until her lungs felt like they were going to explode. When she told me this story, I cried. Not because she almost got kidnapped, not because she saw a man covered in blood, but because she did it anyway. Because she kept going despite that experience. She is not just my mom, she is my hero. And if you are reading this, go hug your mom, or call her. Because people like her, they do not ask for help. They just keep going. That story is something else. A mother who outthought 2 men in a fraction of a second. If that gave you chills, stay with me, because the next story is quieter, and sometimes the quiet ones are the worst. Story 4. Weird guy on swing started following me at night. Note from the poster. Sorry for mixing up dawn and dusk in the title. This happened at night, around 9 in the evening. I was chilling in a park until around 9 at night. I needed to go to the bathroom, which was behind a softball field, looking from the parking area. Most people had already left, but there were some guys around the eating area and still a couple of kids on the basketball field. I was not entirely comfortable, but since there were still kids playing, I thought I would be fine. It was pitch dark already, and the path to the bathroom across the field had no lamps. There was one guy swinging on a swing, about 10 to 20 meters from the others. I only noticed him when I started walking to the bathroom because I had to walk past him. As I kept walking, he got up from the swing and started walking, following me away from everyone else into the darkness toward the bathrooms. I was walking through the field rather than on the sidewalk, so I figured I would stop and let him overtake me to see if he walked past the bathrooms or waited there. I stopped to let him pass, but then he stopped on the sidewalk and started looking directly toward me out in the field. Immediate panic. I started walking back to my car quickly, not running, but fast, keeping an eye on him. I saw him standing there, still looking after me. Then he started walking toward the spot on the field where I had just been. There was nothing else there. I got into the car and drove off as fast as I could. My gut tells me I got very lucky. My survival instinct saved me from something I do not want to think about. It would be a relief to know he was just a confused person passing through. But I do not think he was. Trust your gut. Every single person in these stories trusted theirs. The next one is different, because the threat was not in one place. It was everywhere, all at once, and she still doesn't know how many people were involved. Story 5. I think I am being stalked, and I cannot tell by how many people. I work full-time at a public university in the United States as an office manager and am also enrolled in graduate school at the same institution. I have in-person night classes 3 days a week that start right after I get off work. My apartment is on the first floor of a complex about 10 minutes away. Over the past few months, I have had numerous bizarre occurrences around my home and workplace. The first, to my knowledge, was in September. My neighbor across the hall, a very sweet older woman, told me that a man had been banging on my door for around an hour just after midnight. I was not home. My neighbor poked her head out to ask him what was going on, and he said he was a food delivery driver, with no food or bags in his hands. She watched him through the peephole and told me he tried the doorknob multiple times. As far as I know, he did not come back. But I have also had 3 or 4 instances over this several-month period where someone knocked on my bedroom window late at night, loud enough to wake me and my dog. I never saw who it was. In October, a woman came to my sliding glass door, demanding to come in because her stolen device had been pinging my apartment. When I refused, she called the sheriff's department. The deputy confirmed that a device was pinging my apartment. I have never stolen anything in my life. I was completely bewildered. Never saw her again. In December, I found a plug-in tracking device in the port under my dashboard. The car dealership where it was last serviced said they did not use that brand and did not perform any services that would have put it there. I called the police. They wrote down a few details and left. I have no idea how long it was there. Then, last Tuesday, a middle-aged man came into my office wearing a hairnet, a surgical mask, a hoodie, and sunglasses. He claimed to be a prospective student and had questions about financial aid. I directed him to the financial aid office, but he kept asking questions that our office cannot answer. Then he walked over to our coffee machine, not for communal use, and just started making coffee. He was still there when I left for lunch. When I came back, he was gone, but walked in after me a few minutes later, sat in the lobby briefly, and then left. 2 days later, I came in on Friday. I gave my staff permission to head home early, inadvertently leaving myself alone in the office. The same man came back within 5 minutes of the office clearing out, wearing the exact same clothes, mask, hairnet, and sunglasses. He said he was going to bring back bottled water for our coffee machine. He left, then came back without the water, and leaned against the desk trying to start a conversation. A colleague I had texted came around the corner and stood between us. The man quickly changed the subject, asked about financial aid for the 4th time, and left immediately. I found a tracking device under my dashboard. A man has been watching my office. Someone knocked on my door for an hour while I was not home. Someone has knocked on my bedroom window multiple times. I cannot tell what is isolated and what is connected. I have a sinking feeling that things are going to escalate. She does not know who. She does not know how many. And she is still going to work every day. The next story is shorter, but it is the kind of short that stays with you. Story 6. Almost kidnapped, I think. I am a 23-year-old woman. I was on my way home from work. I work a 3 to 11 shift, and my low fuel light came on. I figured I would stop at the gas station by my house, but my car stalled out about half a mile from the station in a dark suburb because the street light at the intersection was out. I put my hazards on, contacted a roadside assistance service, and was told they would be there in about half an hour. I sat on my phone to wait. A woman came out of her house and approached my car to ask if I was all right. I explained my situation, and she said she would stay by her window to make sure I was safe until help arrived. A couple of other drivers pulled up, checked on me, and drove off. About 10 minutes into waiting, a dark truck pulled up and stopped in front of my car. The headlights turned off, but the engine was still running. I immediately locked my doors and watched a hooded man approach. I could not see his face because of the broken streetlight and the darkness. It was close to midnight. He knocked on my window, and I rolled it down just enough to talk. He asked if I was all right. I said yes. He offered to let me sit in his car, because it was cold and my car had stalled. I said I was fine, gestured to my phone, and told him roadside assistance was a couple of minutes away. They were not. I still had about 15 minutes of waiting, and that I would be on my way shortly. That did not deter him. He got closer to my window. I could have sworn I heard him pull on my door handle to see if it was locked. I moved as far away as I could. Then the woman from earlier came out and yelled at him. Hearing her voice, he immediately left, got in his truck, and drove away. The woman came to my car and said that he didn't seem like he had the best intentions. She waited with me until help arrived. My boyfriend and my best friend both told me I was being dramatic and reading too much into it. I was not. She was not being dramatic. And the last person in tonight's stories almost made a decision that could have been fatal, not out of fear, but out of something that feels very familiar to a lot of people. Story 7. The longest 5-minute walk of my life. I am a 22-year-old male. It was a regular morning. I had just gotten off the bus and was walking the 5 minutes to campus with my headphones on. The university was massive, plastered with signs. You could not miss it. That detail matters. A dirty little van pulled up beside me. The man inside looked like he was in his 40s. His clothes were grimy, the van was grimy, but nothing that unusual for a local work van. He asked, gently, where the university was. I pointed, smiled, told him it was straight ahead, and declined his offer of a lift. He drove off. I put my headphones back in and kept walking. 1 minute later, the van was stopped in front of me again. Get in, he said. I will give you a ride. I smiled and repeated the same answer. No thanks, I was almost there. He stared at me for a few seconds, then drove away. My friend called to say he would be late and to wait in the cafeteria. As I was talking on the phone, the van rolled up beside me for the 3rd time. He asked again, but this time the tone had shifted. He looked at me longer. His gaze moved from my chest to my feet. He was not offering help anymore. He looked tense, like someone who expected to be obeyed. I told him the university was literally 2 steps away. Thanks, but no. He watched me for a few more seconds and drove off. By then I realized he was not lost. If he had wanted to reach the campus, he would already be there. He had been looping the block. He was circling me. Then at the edge of the campus wall, he stopped me again. Get in. I will give you a ride. This time I looked him dead in the face and said, no, now you can go wherever you want to go. He stared at my hair, then my body, for a straight 30 seconds, slow, like a predator deciding which move to make. Then I noticed something in the passenger seat, a rope. It was a small detail, but it landed like a weight in my chest. I crossed the road and slipped through the university gate, but the van pulled up near the campus wall and parked. I stopped just inside, frozen and shaking, shock, confusion, anger, all at once. And then I made the worst decision I almost made in my life. I turned around and started walking back outside toward him. Then my friend messaged asking me to hurry so we could find a spot in the library. I stopped. I let out a slow breath, and I walked back inside. I did not go back to the van. Writing this now, I know how reckless that impulse was. Men sometimes think they can handle these situations with force. They cannot. It can go wrong in a second. I got lucky that my friend messaged when he did. If you are reading this, stay safe. That 5-minute walk was the longest of my life. 7 stories, 7 moments where one wrong step, one unlocked door, 1 second of hesitation could have changed everything forever. If even one of these made your heart race, like this video, because it helps more people find these stories and stay aware. Subscribe right now, because I post real stories like these every single day. And drop a comment below. Which story stayed with you the most? I read every single one. Stay safe, and I will see you in the next one.